It's my feel-good breakfast show.
And welcome back to your Feel Good Breakfast Show. It's still Tuesday, and on a Tuesday, we get into all things relationship chats, and we never, ever do anything easy. It's always got to be a complicated situation because that's kind of what we find ourselves in, isn't it? And today, we have got a complicated one, don't we, Ryle? My goodness.
Yeah, let me bring this one to you, Mzansi. Pay attention and listen up. This is the scenario we're talking about, okay? So, I've noticed a recurring pattern in my relationships that I need some advice on. Whenever I meet a girl that I'm really into, I end up friend-zoning her without even realizing it. It's like an automatic response. I enjoy their company and think about building a deeper connection, but somehow I always steer the relationship towards friendship. Now, later on, I'm recognizing my true feelings for her, and by then, we've established a solid friendship. And it feels awkward to express my romantic interest. Now, this confusion and hesitation often leads to misunderstandings, and ultimately, I end up ruining the friendship. Now, it's frustrating because I genuinely want to pursue a romantic relationship, but my actions keep pushing me in the opposite direction. What am I doing wrong? How can I stop friend-zoning the girls I'm interested in and communicate my feelings more clearly and confidently from the start? I don't want to keep sabotaging potential relationships and losing friends in the process. Any advice on how to break the cycle would be greatly appreciated.
Oh, my goodness. It is a mouthful. It is a handful, but thankfully we are in good hands when it comes to handling this situation. We've got HPCSA registered mental health counselor Danielle Meyer, as well as FAMAC accredited family therapist, divorce mediator and parenting coordinator Danielle Meyer, who join us to please give us their professional advice. It is so much going on here. Before we get into maybe the unconscious patterns that this guy might be getting himself into, what is friend zoning?
Yeah. So I think when we think of friend zoning, it's kind of the idea that, look, this relationship isn't quite romantic and I'm sort of going to put you in the friend zone, i.e., you're now just a friend.
Just a friend.
Just a friend,
Oh,
yes.
that breaks many hearts.
That does. I think a lot of us can relate to that. How then would we say that this gent is, well, what he says, he's automatically creating this friend zone? I don't know whether he's putting himself there or it's coming from the female side, but is this an unconscious pattern? Is this something that could actually exist? And what is actually going on here?
I mean, 100%. I mean, a lot of what we do is subconscious. But what we need to do is we need to figure out why this is a subconscious pattern.
Absolutely.
And if you delve deep into the actual consciousness of this gentleman, we look at things like self-worth, we look at things like, why is he sabotaging himself? And one of the screaming instances that we see often is this unbelievable fear of rejection, you know. So when you are in a relationship with somebody or friendship and you want it to become more, you subconsciously kind of do things to push them away because you are so terrified that if you were to bring your true intentions to the table, they might reject you and that further damages your self-worth.
Yeah.
Another thing that we have to look at also is sometimes we don't feel like people will love us for who we are. So we have to bring some sort of external value to the system. And sometimes what we do is we find that this value that we try and bring is maybe a little bit more on the empathy side or a little bit more on the material giving, that it kind of like makes another person feel like they are a friend because a romantic interest might act a little bit differently.
Oh, my goodness. Well, you spoke about sabotage, you spoke about rejection as well. And I wonder how much of this sort of comes from past trauma, right? I think if we want to go forward, you always got to look back. So maybe you can speak to how that kind of impacts your relationships.
Yeah, so definitely past experiences can impact your outlook and your decision making. So I think in this particular case, he might have had a negative experience with opening up emotionally, being emotionally vulnerable, and so he may still be working through a lot of those emotional triggers and emotional baggage. And, you know, when it comes to past experiences and societal pressures, a lot of men today are also not ready to take on that responsibility of a relationship and those expectations and pressures that come with that. And so he may still be working through that.
Oh, my goodness.
I can't help but like throw my personal experience into this and tell you, like, I've felt these feelings so often, right? Where you vibing. Let's use that term. We're vibing with a particular significant other or potential significant other. In my case, it's a female that I might be interested in. I don't actively pursue like this, I just want to like gun you from the start and try to create a relationship. We build a relationship first, right? And I always would find myself getting to this point where I'm like, I really like this person now. But now I'm not sure if this is just a friendship that's been established here, because we didn't really establish much. It kind of just happened. And now I really want to tell you how I feel, but I'm scared like you just think this is a friendship thing and I don't want to burn myself. When's the right time to be honest about that emotion? How do you bring that emotion and those feelings across in a respectful way, which possibly doesn't like just ruin everything that we have created up until this point? Like we're vibing. I want to lose that. Like at the least, I'll take that. But listen, is there potential for more?
Yeah.
How do we do that without like just losing our minds in the process?
I think this is such a hectic thing to go through, and I think it's based largely on like the emotional intelligence capacity that you have. So what I'd like to throw in is that I would hope that you respect yourself enough to know that if you are really vibing with somebody, that they are valuable to your life and that they are worthy of being in your life. So the reason I say this is because if you can read a situation with the emotional intelligence and kind of understand the cues, the non-verbal cues, look at the emotional situation, look at the actual responses you have, and then you feel like you want it to be more, I would hope that you would feel safe enough in the friendship to actually bring that to the table. And then I think that if you have got that friendship that's worth something, not only will you know how to deal with the other person, but you will also hope that they will respond in a certain way that would be not necessarily favourable, but not damaging. Another thing I do want to say, though, is a lot of people feel, I don't know how you feel, that platonic friendship is impossible between a man and a woman.
That's another conversation.
That is another whole conversation. But the point is, I think that at some point, this conversation is going to come up, and I think both people are already aware that at some point it might come up. So I don't think it is as scary as it seems. And will the friendship last afterwards? Maybe not, but if it's broken because of it, is it a friendship that you really want to have?
Ooh, these are some real questions that you're putting out there. But I know that you put a keyword out there, emotional intelligence. Just quickly, Danielle, how can you develop emotional intelligence? Is this something I can just gain somewhere?
Yeah, so I think when we're looking at emotional intelligence as a whole, a lot of people might be thinking, well, what is that? And it's basically our ability to manage our own emotions, right? But then also understand the emotions of others. And I think one way you can do that is do a little bit of introspection, learn about yourself. What is it that's working for you, not working for you? What do you define as healthy? What do you define as unhealthy in those relationship dynamics? And actually take that time to understand yourself. And, you know, with that, with emotional intelligence, you're able to navigate a lot of emotional stresses that come up and the relationships that are in your life.
Wow.
Absolutely loving this conversation. Look, Danny, double
Danny
D.
squared.
Danny squared. Danny and Danielle are not going anywhere. We're going to have a part 2 of this conversation. Hopefully you've got some comments that you want to share with us. Come through, Mzansi. The number's 063 408 8863. Maybe you got an example of how to get out of the friend zone or break that cycle.
It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Mzansi, welcome back to it. This is your Feel Good Breakfast Show. What a show it's been already, and we're going to keep that flow going right now and dive back into this conversation we had earlier. And we introduced our relationship scenario where a viewer struggled to take things to the next level after friend-zoning his female friends. Now, just as a reminder, we have the most incredible panel out here today. HPCSA registered mental health counsellor Danny May in the building, as well as FAMAC accredited family therapist, divorce mediator and parenting coordinator Daniela May, who is joining us to give their professional advice. So let's take a look at what some of you had to say on social media. Come through, Mzansi. So Fortunate Cell is up first.
Yeah, well, we get started with Mr. Fortunate, and he said, it seems like your actions are an involuntary defense mechanism. Ooh, big words there. Definitely of a past traumatic experience with girls. You need to evaluate patterns from your past relationships and even friendships with feminine figures and really do the shadow work. Therapy is a good way to start. If you're a religious person, prayer and meditation are key. I love that he's brought up even female or feminine figures from the past. That's really important there. Morena Julius also got in touch. My thoughts is you are scared to love, wow, and be rejected. So you take the easier option, which is friendship, but you crave a deeper connection. Learn to trust in yourself and your ability to create a loving, lasting relationship. Then step out of that comfort zone and remember relationships are not always smooth sailing, but if you love somebody, even the struggles become worth it. I wish you very well, and I wish you all the love. That is a
Does our
crazy...
panel agree?
That's so beautiful. I just want to say to the first message that we got there, how a relationship that this man might have with a female figure is so important. And we often look back at how he was parented, perhaps, and what kind of behavior or relationship was modeled to him by his parents or by people that he loved, you know, in his past. So it is very interesting to see that children, as they grow up, form this kind of idea of what a relationship should be based on the people that are closest to them. So that would be an interesting journey for him through therapy or prayer or something like that. It would be very interesting to see.
And you're obviously saying that with relation to the past sort of traumas that you mentioned there, right? So that is something that's quite applicable that comes up in these moments, these
100%. Everything we do going forward is based on some sort of understanding or perception that we have of the situation. We can't act without that, you know. We have to, everything we do, not only in relationships, is based on learned behavior, even if it is subconscious.
Wow, I love that you said perception, because that's what it is sometimes. It's not the truth, right? It's
no,
crazy.
absolutely not. And I think just looking on, you know, some of the messages that they were sending in, I think I like that they identified that it was a pattern. And I think it's important to recognize that when we are actually not addressing our underlying behaviors and patterns, it will lead to that repetition and self-sabotage in our relationships. So it's so important, as you said, do the inner work, right? Identify what it is that's coming up for you and take it from there.
And maybe don't jump into a relationship if you are not ready, you know? It's okay to not be partnered up with somebody.
I think, we need to take more strength in being independent and being alone before we bring the unnecessary baggage into relationship, which almost seems inevitable. I wanted to maybe throw a little bit of a flip side in terms of the perspective we have here. Let's say we've agreed to be friends, and we have been friends for 4 or 5 years, and one of us starts to develop those feelings, and one of us, the one that's developing the feelings, is very aware that the other one doesn't share these feelings. They haven't shown that interest. They've kept to the agreement we had 3 years, 2 years ago. Things change, though, in life, so do emotions, and maybe one of them starts to feel. Knowing that this isn't necessarily going to go anywhere, is it still important to express those feelings? Knowing that it might not result, and knowing that it's not going to potentially result in this outcome that you might want, is it still necessary to express? Is it still necessary to get that emotion off? Or do we need to just internally deal with it, or deal with it some other way?
I feel like we might have opposing views on this.
Yeah, because this is a tricky one to deal with.
So for me, my opinion, I would say it is important to express what you're feeling, simply for the fact that if you're moving from that stance of, I feel something, but I'm just going to repress it, it can lead to a misleading situation or confusion later on down the line. And so I think, even though it might be a difficult or challenging conversation to have, again, it comes with that emotional maturity and intelligence in that moment to say, well, okay, am I just going to keep going and repress and repress and repress? And so think of what is the outcome of that at the end of the day.
So how about you?
I want to add something to that, because I was wrong, we agree. No, but seriously, I like to use like simple, like everyday examples when I try and explain my views. And the point is that, like, if you pretend that your mother cooks for you every night, or your wife or your husband, and you don't like the taste of her chicken, and you can say something to her that will change the course of your chicken eating experience for the rest of your life, or you can sit back and just eat it and not like it. What I'm getting at is that you've got all the power to make the change in your life. So how willing are you to live your life repressing feelings and wondering what might have happened, or being uncomfortable or unhappy, where you could just say, express yourself, again, respectfully, and then deal with the consequences. Either way, you move forward having to grieve a friendship and then move on, hopefully, or you get what you're actually looking for. Who's to say that the other person doesn't feel the same way? So the message is, if you don't say something, nothing is going to change. So you might as well bite the bullet.
Wow.
Inevitability.
Yeah, well, I'm curious your take on situationships, right? Which is maybe a little bit different to friend zoning, because now we're both in this and we're both saying, okay, this is the agreement, to Raul's point, and we're not committing fully to a relationship, but you're going to be there if I need something or need somebody, right? Is that healthy? Is that a good approach to relationships?
So, in my opinion, I don't think it's healthy. I think it's important to look at, okay, what are we both defining here? What are we both committing to? Because when we're both committing to something completely different, that's when it starts to become unhealthy. That's when toxic patterns can come up. And so, for me, anything other than we've decided to both be in a committed relationship leaves room for a bit of gray area, but a blurry, exactly. It leads to that, kind of blurred line. So just to be intentional, be intentional.
Be intentional. It almost seems like regardless of what situation we are speaking about or might enter into the future, a conversation needs to be had.
Yes.
It's inevitable that at some point we can't just rely on things to just happen and guesswork and all.
The chips fall in.
So what is the theme of every single week that you've had on the segment? I'm sure it's the same thing.
It is the same. But
Communication.
And I think now for me what does stand out is I've been looking at this from the perspective of oneself, not thinking about how this information might impact or affect the other person you're delivering it to.
Yeah.
And I think when you start to, because this is something you mention quite often, is when you start to really think about the impact of your decision that goes beyond just yourself, it might then curb your actual actioning process to realize, well, we've discussed this, we agreed to this, there's no point in me saying this, so why bring this negativity into relationships? Well, we discussed this 5 years ago and it was a maybe. We're here now, so let's address it again.
Yes.
And I think that's where we're very hesitant. We're scared to maybe converse. Why do you think that's so difficult, though?
I mean, especially in what you've just said now, it's obvious. We are scared of being rejected. And we have this natural desire as human beings to be accepted.
To be true.
I mean,
Yeah,
look
that's
at the
true.
whole trend of the world with, what do you call it, Instagram?
Social media right now,
yeah. I mean, there is so much that we are looking for to feel like we're okay and that we have something to offer. And this is why so many relationships break down, is because we're just trying so hard. But ultimately, all you want, you know what I say to a lot of my clients and a lot of kids that I deal with, or teenagers, is that be yourself, be authentically yourself, because then the right person will come to you. Because there is no point in marketing shoes to a horse. There's no point, because they are not your target audience.
Right.
Yeah.
The same way, if I'm now going to sit and spend my whole life pretending I'm the most amazing singer, which I'm not, somebody is eventually going to ask me to sing and they're going to be very disappointed. So the point is, be authentic, be yourself, be accepted for who you are, because that is how it works.
Wow, Danny Squid has got it. They know the business. They're in it 100%. Thank you so much for joining us and dispelling all things and getting into the details of situationships and also, of course, friend zoning. That is all we have for today on our Relationship Talk Tuesday. Of course, we'll see you again next week, same time, same place.